Hello guys, welcome to a new video, and today we're going to discuss the intrinsic value. So what is the intrinsic value? The intrinsic value is actually getting the value of your asset based on its intrinsic fundamentals. And in order to get the intrinsic value of a cash flow generating asset, meaning if you have an asset that generates cash flow like a firm, we need to do the following. We write the value as a function of the expected cash flows that my asset's going to be generating. So here is cash flow 1, here is cash flow 2, and I keep doing this over the lifetime of the asset. So I will be doing this until I reach cash flow n, meaning whereby I take here n as the lifetime of my asset. So I keep going, as I said, till n, and I have to be careful because those cash flows are expected cash flows, so I have to get their present value, but I have to factor in the risk of actually not receiving those cash flows, and therefore I adjust the discount rate in the denominator to account for the risk So here I have 1 plus r over t, and here t is 1, here it's 2, and here it's n, 1 plus r over n to the power n. And r actually is a factor of the cost of capital and the cost of debt, and they're both affected, by the riskiness of my firm, because there's first of all beta, and we also have the debt ratios that also affect the riskiness. So the riskiness is factored in the cost of capital here in the denominator, and yeah, this means that my value is affected by the magnitude of the cash flows that I'll be receiving over the lifetime of my asset. And by magnitude, I mean how big the cash flows are. And so this V is written as the present value of those cash flows. By the way, this is here cash flow n, not cash flow 3. Sorry for this. Okay, now let's assume that our cash flows are not expected. They are guaranteed. I will be receiving after 1 year this cash flow, and it's going to be exactly the same, and this is going to be over the whole lifetime of the asset. So am I supposed to adjust for the risk in the denominator? No, actually, if I'm guaranteed to receive those cash flows, then there is no risk and associated with the firm, and therefore I have to put the risk-free rate here instead of r. So this is very important to be consistent. If those cash flows are guaranteed, then there is no risk, so I put the risk-free rate. If they're just expected, then there is risk associated with this asset and the cash flows it will be generating, and therefore I have to adjust for the risk here and put the cost of capital in the denominator. Therefore, we notice here 3 things. A, if something does not affect the cash flows or the riskiness of the cash flows in a firm, then it cannot affect the value of a firm. The second thing we have to note is that in order for an asset to have value, those cash flows have to turn positive at some point in time. So you may be losing at the first couple of years, but you have to turn positive, or else those assets do not really have any value. And the last thing is that assets that generate cash flows earlier in time are worth more. But be careful, if those cash flows are equal, then if I generate them earlier, then asset A would be worth more than asset B. However, if asset B generated, if asset A generated cash flows earlier in time, but asset B had bigger cash flows, like way bigger cash flows and a bigger growth rate between each cash flow, then of course B would be bigger. So we have to keep this in mind. That's it for this video. I hope you like it.